Oh, should I have a burp coming? Almost squelched it. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning into the Banff Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lafferty, and here we are with our contractually obligated musical intro.
It felt longer than normal.
It's a little late, and I lost the end musical intro button, the high button. So yeah, we got to get to the
The
parts
full
of that we don't
Monty.
usually get to. Yeah. But that assures our listeners and our viewers that this is a high quality, additive free, gluten free, farm to table, ethically sourced, geeky conversation podcast.
That's artisanal.
Artisanal.
Yeah, artisanal.
So, and with us tonight is Mr. Alan Bahr of Gallon Night Games. How you doing, Alan?
I'm good. How are you all doing?
We're great. Good to have you again. And Walt Billiard, frequent co-host, returning because he loves indie comics.
I do love indie comics. They're
What's
my
not
favorite.
to love?
Yeah. So you guys kind of have a parallel because Walt started out in gaming, and now Walt's working heavily in publishing, doing military sci-fi, military fantasy. And Alan, you're the tiny D6 guy. You're heavily in gaming. And this, if I'm not mistaken, is kind of your first step into a different world of publishing.
You are mistaken, actually.
Okay.
I have worked in fiction publishing over the years in the last decade multiple times.
Oh, I was unaware. All right, cool.
Yeah, it's not something, it was kind of behind the scenes, stuff like that. So nothing worth getting fancy about. But
well, speaking of getting fancy, Ringbreaker.
Yeah.
Epic fantasy comic, and it looks cool as heck. We got 8 days left. Let me throw out the tiny URL while we're talking so I don't forget. tinyurl.com/Ringbreaker will take you right to Kickstarter. It is funded. The book's going to happen. 8 days left. And this was a Kickstarter project we love. So congratulations for getting the badge.
Yeah, that was cool to see, especially because it's our first comic. So
can you tell us a little bit about the comic?
Yeah, so Ringbreaker is like it says on the tin, epic fantasy. It's in a unique fantasy world where the dragons have sort of thrown down the gods and magic functions a little differently than you might be used to. And so it takes place here, and this village is attacked, and a brother and sister go on a quest of revenge.
That's I'm getting kind of a Viking vibe from the art and the story we're talking about.
Yeah, when I described it to the artist, I said it's Dragon Ball Z meets the Northmen with a lot of Hal Foster's Prince Valiant.
Nice. I like that combination. I used to love the Prince Valiant Sunday strips.
Yeah, I worked in the RPG when Nocturnal Media did the reissue, and I have much of the collected editions on my shelf of the Prince Valiant. So definitely a big influence for me, and you can tell by the way I did the lettering and the writing in here that definitely lean towards that Prince Valiant vibe.
Cool.
Go
ahead, Al.
Okay. Oh, you can go ahead, Mike.
No, it's all you, buddy.
I was going to say I like the color aesthetic and the way the artist frames things. Initially with the first pages, you get that eagle seeing things from its eye and stuff like that. I like the color palette on this too. I'm really vibing on the color palette. I like the fact that the colors are more muted and they're you're getting a much more focus on the characters versus trying to take it all in and trying to figure out what's what on the page. It's really a nice looking book so far.
Yeah, Facundo Lopez out of Argentina is the artist who did it. He's done stuff for Metal Hurlant, heavy metal, for those of you who might be familiar with that. As well as a bunch of other stuff. And he did the art and the inking and the coloring, and then I did the writing, lettering, scripting, plotting, all that. So I gave him a script, he did the pieces, and then I went in and did the final pieces, and we kind of back and forth it.
Cool. Can I ask you how you do lettering? Is that just an Adobe thing, or
I use digitally. I use Affinity personally, because that's the software I'm familiar with. But I love lettering. It's actually one of my favorite things to do to relax. So I have relettered this comic with different actual stories 3 or 4 times. Just because I like lettering. I was like, I wonder if I can change the story by changing the script after the art's done.
I got a newfound respect for you, Alan, because I spent a very terrible month back in the '90s trying to letter a comic by a guy I hung out with at Denny's, and it was an awful lot of okay. I'm going to scan the art and try to Microsoft Paint draw a word bubble just like this, and then I gave up and I was trying to do it old style with
yeah. It's a lot easier digitally, obviously, because if you screw it up, you can just erase it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's some tricks where I have a font manager that manages my fonts to make it easier. I can do all the bubbles in advance if I want to. And in Ringbreaker is a little different in that I don't need as many bubbles, right? Because we're doing that Prince Valiant caption style.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got an upcoming Tiny Supers comic that I lettered, and it's all got the bubbles. So.
Now, Tiny Supers had some comics in it already, didn't it?
Yep, it had one comic as part of the Kickstarter, but we got some more coming.
Oh, sweet. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you're fulfilling through Drive-Thru Comics, which is that's pretty cool. Print. I'm guessing you guys are not doing print on demand through Drive-Thru for the comic.
There will be a print on demand version offered.
Mm-hmm.
But it will not be through Drive-Thru Comics. That'll be digital only.
Okay.
We're actually we'll have it on Comixology and digital, multiple other small press like Kablam, and I have a list on my computer. I don't remember, but like several of them also offer the like the print on demand comics with the staple binding. So we'll be doing that too.
Oh, cool. So what inspired you specifically? Why is this is clearly a passion project of yours?
I grew up on comics. I love comics. It was something, I've been reading them for 25 years at this point, a little bit longer probably. And I've written some, with the Tiny Supers comics, and I've helped other people with their comics with lettering and stuff. And I decided part of it was I just wanted to do something creative that wasn't a game, because I do so much of my creative output goes into the game industry. I am, as people have called me, prolific. And I just wanted to do something creative that was just creative. I paid for it myself out of my own pocket. It wasn't like funded by Gallant or anything. So the 500 lets us print it. I can't make more issues unless we raise 2,000. That's how much each issue costs roughly. For Facundo's production services. But I just really wanted to do something creative that wasn't a game. Like that's what it push came to shove. I had this idea. I ran RPGs in the world of Ringbreaker at home in my personal games. I've never seen print or anything, but I was like, I would love to tell this story I have in my head for this.
Awesome.
So was Northman like a big latch on for you? With like there was, because I mean that was a visually stacked movie.
First of all, that movie's amazing. Like I'm not gonna say anything otherwise because it is. I really loved it. I am an avid student of Viking Age history. Is what I have studied in college. You can't see my shelf, but those top 3 shelves are all different Viking Age history books for the most part. I am very well versed. I have my own personal annotated copies of Edda's and Snorri Sturluson work, stuff like that I have annotated over the years.
I haven't heard Snorri Sturluson since I was in Iceland about 5 years ago. That's pretty cool.
So it's already a thing I was, kind of deeply familiar with and had a lot of personal sort of investiture in. And so it's not explicitly a Viking comic or anything like that, but when I wrote 3 arcs. So I have a 3-issue arc, a 6-issue arc, and a 12-issue arc. So depending on how it does, we might see different. I knew, I might not be able to make the whole thing. So when I wrote it, I'm like, I want to make sure I can leave it off at a satisfactory place. Right. And so if we were to get to the full 12-issue arcs, you would see that once you leave the Northland, it's not just a Viking, pseudo-European world. Facundo kind of ran with that aesthetic with the art, and I liked it so much I didn't dare correct him. I was like, no, this is great. Let's just keep doing this. This isn't quite what I pictured, but it was so good. I'm like, I'm not going to say no to this. Who am I? What kind of monster would I be?
Fair enough. So hey, looking at your tiers, just to try to entice listeners, $5 is the entry level. That's your PDF.
Yep.
$7, you get to print out the print version.
Yep.
And the PDF. And then Ringbreaker All in Physical 20. This is PDF, and you get 4 variant covers in print. Is that right?
You get the standard cover in 3 variants. So you get Facundo's cover, which is the standard, and that's the one on the page with the brother and sister Arn and Rebna there. And then there's a variant cover from Nicholas Giacondino, who is the Tiny Supers illustrator. Folks familiar with my work might know him because he illustrates a lot of our Tiny D6 products as well as numerous other games I've done. And then there's a cover from Amanda Call, who does the Age of Night webcomic, and she's also done some other indie comics. She's a professional artist. Does a lot for skirmisher games in the game industry, if you're familiar with them. And then LFOSR, who is, again, he's a fine art artist out of California who's a friend of mine, but he also runs the zine shop LFOSR. So all of them are contributing, these cool covers for me. So
that is awesome. It's cool to have artist friends. And
yeah.
I'm psyched that there's a guy who runs a zine shop somewhere. That's I had thought zines were a thing of the past, except for the recent resurgence in RPGs. I'm glad to hear that was.
Well, he runs an RPG zine shop online, like it's not a physical store, but if you go to lfosr.com, you can see what he's got. It's pretty great stuff.
Oh, sweet. Okay, I'll have to give that a look.
Yeah,
fun stuff. All right, cool, man. So hopefully we can get up to $2,000 the next 8 days. Get another issue going on. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna make all 3. It's just the $2,000 lets me do it a lot faster.
Yeah. Okay. So there will be another Kickstarter at some point for more Ringbreaker.
Yes, I will get my 3-issue miniseries out the door, one way or another. Just the speed of which it will come might be a little different depending on how well we fund.
That might be a good question, I guess. If I back Kickstarter today, when do I get the PDF?
So the PDF is done. It is edited. It is lettered. It is laid out. The only thing that has not been done is I have not plugged in the variant spreads for the last couple pages because we have spreads with the different variant covers in the back. Because not all the variant art is done, so it hasn't been plugged in yet. But you will get your PDF 2 weeks after the project closes when the money is delivered. Like once your pledge goes through, 2 weeks, boom, done.
Oh, fantastic! So it's pretty much a sure thing.
Yeah, it is literally finished. I mean, and I know I show Mike. I know I sent you the full PDF. Like you've seen the whole comic.
Do you mind if I share some of that, or is that?
Please, no. Let's talk about it. Just don't share like the last half.
Okay.
Leave a little bit of mystery here.
Yeah.
That was on Facebook Messenger, right?
Yes, it was. Yeah, there's a Dropbox link.
All right, give me just 1 second.
Now, this copy you have is the unedited copy. So the editor just returned it on, I want to say Thursday to me with edits for the final, like kind of grammatical copy edit. So that'll be rolled in there. And then
please tell me you messed with the editor and put a bunch of Icelandic stuff in there.
No, I did send them a nice explanation of how lettering works, though, so they wouldn't try to correct how I capitalize my I's because it's very different than standard grammar. So those of you who are familiar with comics lettering, the way you use a capital I with the crossbars or not is very different than normal grammar. And so I said, hey, you're going to tell me this is wrong because you're a copy editor. Just to be clear, in comics, this is not wrong. So let's talk, right? So, yeah. So if you want to scroll up 2 pages here. So we got our opening page. Oh, one down, one more. So there's our little opening scroll. And then this is the opening page you saw on the Kickstarter. We got the first 2 spreads there. And I was really proud of Facundo for this one because in my brief, when I sent him the script, I was like, I really want to do that movie like Through the Eye of the Bird, right? And Facundo just crushed it. Like he understood what I was going for. And he was able to get there. Some of this lettering has been adjusted since there. Like it's a little less tight there with the precision and the P and stuff. But those are the kind of things you clean up once the editor's done because you're moving it all anyway.
I'm impressed.
And so then,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Oh no, I was gonna kiss your ass some more and say I was impressed at the level and attention of detail you've clearly put into this.
Yeah, Facundo and I want to say we started on the first round of art about 6 months ago. It took some time to get it all sorted just because we were going back and forth to get it right. But now that it's right, it's going to go so quick. And I love the kinetic sort of like action in these pieces here. Like for something that is static on the page, it looks so dramatic.
Like this right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really cool stuff. I can't say enough good things. I will be backing once we finish talking here. This is look like it. And so when do we see the RPG there, Alan?
I wrote this so I didn't have to make a game. Don't do this to me.
Okay, sorry.
But conveniently, when I gave Facundo his art briefs, I in my head I was like, "Hey, if I have to make an RPG, this piece can go here. This piece will be the right size for this." So, yeah, it definitely came up. So we should stop here. We don't want to go any farther. But
Okay, stopping. Okay. Yeah, that's an
But,
amazing looking book. You guys have made something
yeah.
beautiful.
yeah, he really crushed it. If nothing else, I think folks should back it for Facundo's art. The writing, I mean, I wrote it. Like, I think it's pretty good. But regardless of anything, Facundo's art is quality throughout that whole book.
I would definitely agree based on what we saw just now. So that's awesome. Hey, I'm trying to remember if Snorri was the right story I'm thinking of from Iceland. Is he the guy who, when he was dead, he took up all his precious metal, all his silver, and was trying to make it to the meeting of the thing? And his plan was to just throw all of his gold and silver out and let all the assembled landholders of Iceland fight for his money while he laughed at them. But he wound up dying in a forest on the way there.
I don't recall that particular story. Okay. He was supposedly he was assassinated by the king of Norway.
Okay, different guy.
Yeah, different guy.
So. Yeah, I didn't mean to make this into Icelandic saga trivia night. No. Forgive me for that. So.
I love talking that stuff, so you don't want to twist my arm.
Yeah, we were actually. It was a big part of our trip to Iceland. There was we found a saga museum in some little town we stopped at, and yeah, they did it really, really well. It scared the hell out of my kid.
Well, good. That's what I should do.
Yeah, it really, it was a good time. So, Walt, before we wrap up, you have any other questions, comments, thoughts you want to get in?
No, just usually I'm all about the art, especially in an indie comic. And I love it when, like Alan was saying, he's got a lot of treatises on this particular subject. Was there anything that you used to show the artist, like, hey, this is what this sword or this piece of clothing should look like to be era specific and stuff like that? Or did you let him run wild?
A little bit of both. So I have learned over the years, and if you see my RPG work, you'll get this. I tend to let the people I work with stretch creatively. I don't like to restrict people unless I have to.
Yeah.
I tend to find that it's better to give them enough rope to do something really cool and then adjust to it. So with Facundo, we sort of worked on a modified Marvel method. If anybody's familiar with that. So the Marvel method was basically you would send like a page by page breakdown, you would draw, and then I would go in and like letter it, right? Instead, it was like a panel by panel breakdown, but I didn't bother to write all the dialogue or anything.
Right.
Because I knew I was going to pace it to the story with this Hal Foster style. And so without knowing where all the art was going to land, it was kind of impossible to figure out. So it was like a really detailed Marvel method, maybe is what you would call it, or a heavily modified. And so I sent him like sort of the script and the plotting and said, it would say like, I'm like, I don't care how you spread these 3 panels out across the top, but the top third should, have these 3 parts with the eagle eye and zooming in and out. Right. And so then he turns in whatever he turned in, which is great. And then, the bottom third, I want a landscape shot of this. Right. And he's like, well, we'll do it with the bottom 2/3. And he would send it back and be like, hey, I know you sent this and I like it, but I think visually this will work better for pacing and storytelling. And every time I was like, that makes sense. Yeah, let's do that. Why would I not listen to the artist who's worked in comics for 10 years? Like, when am I going to say, no, you're wrong? Like,
Yeah, that's almost always a conversation I have with artists. Like, I get this better idea. I'm like, here, run with it. You think visually. So
the only time I will say no is if that idea conflicts with a very specific need we have. Right. Like, so, I sent him some references and images and mock-ups of like, hey, this is how I picture the character. When I say, Revna wears an eye patch, I see her eye patch as this kind of eye patch, with the 3 straps, with the cross strap and then the one going across the other side, rather than just the one, right? Or when I say Arn has a knife, the kind of knife I mean is, a sex rather than a like a
like a hunting knife.
right. Yeah, exactly. Or when I say an axe, I don't mean a bearded axe, which is the big two-handed,
Mm-hmm.
kind of Dane axe, Viking axe. I mean this kind of axe, right? Or the sword should look like this. I sent him some of that, but I also just a sword's a sword, right? And because I'm not trying to make a historical thing, if he wanted to give a spatha to Rebna, he could have, and I would have probably been like, that's fine, whatever, you know. But Facundo's an excellent artist, and he knew exactly what I was going for, and he landed it. So we mostly,
Right.
I think we mostly went around on the gods and how they look that show up in this comic more than anything, because I had a very specific vision of those gods, and because to me, when I say there is a god there, just the appearance of the god should tell you everything immediately what that god is about, right? So as you see in the first couple pages where the god of slaughter shows up, well, he's literally destroying a village. He's a giant with a big old brute force weapon, no armor. He is all about the bloodshed. And right there on the page, what that guy's doing because he's silhouetted in flames of a burning town. Right? And when some of the other gods show up, the way they show up or the way they interact, you're getting this very particular vibe. Exactly, right? Like Kalsia, god of bloodshed. Well, you know what that guy's about when you see him show up there. Because I was really wanted a very particular sort of like the gods should be deific. They should be imposing. They should feel like a god has just landed on Earth next to you and is gonna just break stuff.
Hell yeah, yeah. And like I said before, the color palette kind of brings that out because here's this guy just wading through fire. I mean, he's got tons of stuff on him that is pretty flammable, including his beard, and he's just like tra la la, blood and murder, and
Right.
you got like you had said, he's wreathed in fire. I mean, if you can't figure out that who he is just by standing in that kind of environment, you might need to do a second read through.
Right. And one of the fun things was as we were doing this, Facundo sent me the pencils and then the inks. And so after he sent the inks, I'd already started lettering because I had the inks. I knew the page layout, right? And I was like, well, I'll just change the background of the boxes later. And I very quickly realized, oh, I can't do this because I don't always know what color something's going to be. So if you look at the bottom here where it says, grab Calcia, god of bloodshed, it kind of blends in with his robe. Well, in the final one, I've actually moved it up to the top because now that I have the color, this is just a placement from where it was when it was black and white.
Yeah.
Right. And now that I have the colors, I'm like, you can't read that. That needs to go up top. It needs to be its own thing.
So is that so? Do you have like a bucket of lessons learned from this project going into the next one?
Yes and no. I mean, every artist is a little bit different, right? So some of these, if you look here where Shelter found the siblings argue deep in the dark. Well, that's in a box. That can kind of be wherever, right? And I've reworked the flow, and this draft you're seeing is more, I had put all the words in there, and then over the last couple of weeks, since I sent this to Mike, I had tweaked it or reworked it. We moved this embittered by his domain. It got slid down, to a different spot. Things like that to try to kind of improve it. But, a lot of these were placed back when it was just black and white inks. So... And this one down here, an offering made, right? Originally, that was just black text because I didn't have colors. And once you turn in the colors, I'm like, oh, that can't be, blue or white or black. That's going to have to be that kind of orange thing there. So it blends in there. And so I wouldn't say it was a lesson learned in that I was aware this could happen. And the work wasn't wasted in that I'd already written. And I was just kind of moving it around or tweaking it, which I had to do from here on. But it was, every artist is a little bit different. Right. And when you're working with such a small team where, Facundo's, he's sort of got the pacing because he's doing the art. So he's doing the pencils and the inks and the colors. And then I'm doing the scripting and the plotting and the lettering. And then, we have an editor at the end. That's the whole team, right? We don't have, a different person for each step there where there's a letterer and a writer and an artist. And, the artist is really three people, pencils, inks, colors, right? And so with that small team where you're wearing multiple hats, you're sort of kind of feeling it out with each new collaborator. So like if I had been doing this with Nicholas Giacondino, who I work with on a daily basis, I would have known what Nick was going to use for colors because I know the colors Nick picks a lot. When I started seeing these colors from Facundo, I was like, oh, this is not what I had sort of expected. Not that it was bad, but I just, I hadn't seen all these kind of soft pastel orange, pinks, blues, grays, right? And I was like, I'm going to have to adjust kind of how I had planned to present some of this in a good way. It forced me to stretch.
Cool. That sounds like it was a really interesting experience creating the book. Definitely look forward to, getting a print copy and seeing where the world of Ringbreaker goes from here.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you very much for having me on to talk about it. I appreciate you guys making the time.
Rah.
We've been fans of your work for a long time, Alan, so glad to see you moving in different directions.
Yeah.
So, all right. Hey, thanks everybody for checking us out tonight, and we will see you next time on the BAM Podcast.
Woo!